everyone, let's talk about the terrain tool. This is the first video that I will be sharing covering the different tools that we've seen so far and sort of like checking out the icons, the different like buttons that we have and speculating about what they could be for. So let's dive in. Here we go to the terrain tool. Let me reach the terrain tool over here. Okay, so we have the terrain tool. The terrain tool here has many different options, but I love how clean the UI looks. I mean, overall, the Planet Zoo 2 UI is looking very simple and yet complete. It's looking very approachable, which is what the UI should be all about. I think they've done an amazing job with the UI so far. So let's go here to the terrain tool and we have sculpting first. We have the three options over here. We have the shovel, which is for sculpting the terrain. We have this one in the middle, which is the stamp tool because it looks a lot like a stamp. Remember the stamp tool? If you don't, it's basically sort of like a way to add or remove terrain faster with pre-made 3D shapes like a cube and different shapes that we have there, like a sphere or something like that. Then we see this third option, which is basically a terrain paint, where you actually choose a terrain paint like grass or sand or dirt and you blend the different textures on the ground. Then we go to sculpting. Here we can see the sculpting options, and we see that based on my analysis, these seem to be like the opposite. If one goes up, the other one goes down. If one stretches, the other one condenses. So they've grouped them by opposites. Here we can see push because this is the active option and it says push, and this one should be pull. However, one thing that I'm noticing over here is that these two icons are the same. Maybe this was a small bug or a small issue with the UI at that point, but I think this one should be pushing down. The icon, the arrow should be going down like this one. So this is something like this. Then we see the option to pull the terrain, to push the terrain. This one looks like smoothing the terrain, I think. This one looks like roughen the terrain, but really rough because you can see the little sharp corners over here. Then we can see pull and push, but this one looks sort of like with a different intensity based on the distance from the ground, because you can see that the effect is like darker at the tip or at the top of the terrain. So maybe this will be like a gradual effect. Then we see this, which sort of looks like condensing the terrain towards the center, and this one looks like dispersing the terrain from the center or like moving it further away. So I'm curious about these options, but this one is the one that I'm most curious about. Like, this sort of looks like twisting the terrain because the arrow is twisted. However, I'm not really sure what this will actually do because one is twisting towards the right, the other one is twisting towards the left, but I'm not really like sure what they will do with the terrain, so I'm looking forward to that. Then we see these options at the bottom. This one is sort of like flattened to surface, but it is sort of like relative to a construction or a building. Like here you can see that we have a roof of some sort. And this one over here is just the terrain option itself. So I'm not really sure why they have these two options. Looking forward to seeing how they are different, and I will definitely create a tutorial on that when it comes out. Then we see this one, which is sort of like flattened to surface, I think, or flattened to like, it's the option where you flatten the terrain, but on an angle, the angle where you're clicking on. It's very nice to create like a gradual ramps. And here we can see another tool, which I think is the ramp tool. I think this one will convert the sort of like rough terrain into a smooth ramp based on the icon. And this one is sort of like smoothing the roughened terrain, I think, because you can see that the mountains over here are like smoother. They're not so sharp like in this one over here. So I think these two, this one and this one, will be complementary of some sort. And then we can see the water options over here. This would be, I think this one is adding the water. This one, not really sure. Maybe it is selecting the water to make like the adjustments to the water. And this one would be, of course, removing the water. And the great thing is that we can, as we see in the animation, we can modify the terrain with the water on the ground. Then we see the settings over here. Let's check out the settings. This one is basically locking the terrain modification. I think this one is locking it to the ground, maybe? this is very interesting. Like, maybe we're going to lock the terrain modification to avoid making any changes where there is foliage. This one is for the ground, or maybe it's for the pathing. I think this one could be for the pathing, maybe, so the terrain close to the path will not be modified. Then we see this over here, which should be like customizing, I think, some sort of customization for the terrain. Maybe this is for the terrain paint. Not really sure. Maybe if we are modifying the terrain, the paint will already be applied there. And this one is one that I see that it's sort of like grayed out, but I'm not really sure what it is about. It's sort of like roughening the terrain because you can see like a wave, but it also has this little icon that looks like a box. So I'm not really sure what this one, the last one, could do. Interesting, because we're going to learn more about these tools as we see them in the gameplay. But I thought it would be fun to cover the tools that we have so far and sort of like brainstorm what they could be. Then we see the intensity, of course. Intensity is the intensity. There's not a lot to think about here. And then the size. 3.5, you can see that it has a very nice scale. You can see that if this is 3.5, we can make it a lot larger. So that is helpful to work faster. And that is the terrain tool that we have so far, that we've seen so far. Thank you for watching. I promised that these videos would be short because right now we're sort of like brainstorming about these icons. We don't have any like confirmation, but it is fun to like check out the new tools, because I'm very excited about the new tools and their potential and how they've like also worked on them from the feedback that they got for Planet Coaster 2, because most of these tools are also adapted from Planet Coaster 2, which are awesome. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about the new terrain tool? What do you think about the new UI? Looking forward to reading that in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.